Hello, this is CJ, and welcome to my 2020 manga collection video. This has been a long time coming, and a big part of the reason why it took so long is because of, well, these shelves behind me. I really wanted to get shelves that would highlight my collection instead of the ones that I've had so many years, and I just adore them. It's been a lot of fun building these shelves and placing the series exactly where they need to go in order to just make my collection so perfect. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to be seeing my classroom shelf in this video. Why? Well, take a look at the date that this video was published. Yeah, it's April 2020. The world itself is preventing me from getting to that shelf. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to move my classroom shelf to a future video all of its own where I talk about the manga volumes that I choose for my students and why some series are great for kids and others, well, not so much. So if you're patient, that video will come out eventually, and I'm very, very excited to make it. Now let's get to the collection itself. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about some of my favorite series, really go into depth about some of my favorite nostalgia classics, some of my favorite current hits, and other stuff I just think is cool. Let's get to it. These are the manga in my bedroom, where most of my manga is collected. We go past my workspace over to this shelf, and I promise I'll move the umbrella when we get over here. So starting with this shelf over here, the very, very top left, here we have Alive, the Final Evolution by Adachi Toka, partnered with Tadashi Kawashima. There we go. And this story has got a lot of sadness to it. So there aren't any more volumes past volume 8 that were published physically. In fact, this volume at the very end is like, stay tuned for volume 9, and volume 9 never happened. Not only that, but Kawashima died while he was writing the ending to this story. So Adachi Toka ended up going on her own with Noragami, which, gosh, just so sad. Alive, the Final Evolution, very scary story about a virus that takes over the world that causes people to kill themselves, and those who live through this virus end up getting superpowers as a result. It is a bonkers story. Interesting story at that. Unfortunately, again, you can only get digital beyond volume 9. Next up is Noragami, and Noragami is fresh as heck. I got volumes 1 all the way to 21 and volume 1 of the short stories, which I don't know if they're ever going to publish a second one. What's up with that? Noragami is what I consider to be today's Inuyasha. It's about a girl who partners with a stray god, as the title implies. It's very crazy. Got a lot of that sort of like Inuyasha, like will they, won't they kind of romance stuff. And it's just a lot of fun. The characters in this story are really, really stinking bonkers. I like this lady in particular on volume 2. She's just so cool. If you're into like feudal Japan mythology, that sort of stuff, I highly, highly recommend Noragami. It's a heck of a lot of fun. Next, we got Kaguya-sama Love is War, and I really, really, really want to get more into this series, but for some reason it's not hitting home for me like it has for others. It's a lot of fun though. If you're into like romance stories, especially romance stories that like just are not afraid to have fun and kind of poke fun at the tropes of these sort of stories, definitely get Kaguya-sama. It's an absolute riot. It's very, very funny. Next, we have Jujutsu Kaisen, and I thought that this story originally was called Jujutsu Kaisen. I was like, oh, awesome. It's a martial arts manga. No, it's not. So this is a recent manga that's coming out in Shounen Jump. It's a lot of fun. I actually finished the chapters that are available in the Shounen Jump app, so I'm not sure if I'm going to get anything past volume 1, but it is a heck of a good time. Very, very violent for Shounen Jump, though. Like, I was shocked at some of the stuff that I saw, not only in this volume, but also in the rest of the series. But I love its women characters. This author does women such sweet justice. High recommendation. Speaking of awesome women, Fullmetal Alchemist by Arakawa. Incredible series. I have volumes 1 through 8 coming down here. Volumes 9 through 27, and the 4-panel gag manga at volume, which has all of the gag manga in it. It's pretty sweet. Spine's a little goofy though. Don't like that. Oh, my sweet boy Alphonse. He's so cool. This is the first of my figures gonna see. I got a lot of those. Fullmetal Alchemist, Arakawa's masterpiece. I always recommend this as somebody's first manga. I mean, it's just that good. It's got pretty much everything you'd ever want in a manga. It's got magic, it's got science, it's got romance, it's got adventure, it's got science, did I say science? It's got double science, it's got horror. It's absolutely fantastic. I want to reread it right now, just talking about it. Absolutely give this a try. It's amazing. What are you doing? Read Full Alchemist. Next we have Arakawa's sort of slice of life story, Silver Spoon. This is the Japanese edition that I got when I was in Japan. I have most of the volumes in my classroom, on my classroom shelf. So unfortunately, I just only have the Japanese volume here. But it's a great series. It's not as action-packed as Full Alchemist, obviously. So even if you like Full Alchemist, it's not a guarantee you're going to like Silver Spoon. And even if you like Full Alchemist, it's not a guarantee you're going to like The Heroic Legend of Arsalan either. This is a manga based on a light novel written by a different person. So although Arakawa definitely puts her own flavor into this story, it's not Full Alchemist, so don't go into it thinking it's going to be like it. The problem with Arslan is, like, every time I get a new volume, I find myself having to reread previous volumes because the story is so complicated that I forget who certain characters are, locations are, important events in the story. So this is probably one of the toughest manga series I own, in terms of comprehension. So fair warning on this one. Next we have Nichijou, My Ordinary Life. I want to give this one a second chance. I know a lot of people really, really enjoy Nichijou, and for some reason it didn't like ring home with me, and I don't know why. I want to give it another chance though. It's super cute. I never really had a lot of laugh out loud moments with this series, and that might be why I didn't like it like some people did. Non Biori, cute, adorable series. I'm looking into getting more volumes. I have looked into getting more volumes for a while, but the volumes at full price are pretty expensive. They're like $12. I'm looking to get them used. But Non Biori's cute. It's about a bunch of girls who live in super rural Japan. In fact, they're the only 4 girls who attend their school, which, by the way, at least in the States, that wouldn't happen. If your community is so small that you literally have, there's a 5th student too, 5 students going to your actual physical building for school. Yeah, no, sorry, that's not going to happen. What they do typically in these sort of scenarios is they take multiple towns and multiple communities, and then they'll gather them all together, and they'll have all the students go to the same school that's typically located in the center of those communities. But nevertheless, still super cute. I absolutely adore it, especially as someone who is just getting used to rural life myself. Next, we have Azumanga Daioh, the masterpiece. This 4-panel gag manga is precious to me. I absolutely adore this. And this edition is super, super cool. It's got the entire series in it. This series was a huge treasure to my sisters and I growing up. It's absolutely hysterical. It's still funny today. I cannot recommend this enough. It's very, very, very silly. It's like Inside Joke, the series. Like, the jokes just build and build and build and build on each other until the series just explodes. Like, it's just amazing. Trust me when I say this. If you like comedy, read Azumanga Daioh if you haven't already. Speaking of Azumanga Daioh, we have the next series by that author, Yotsuba. Yotsuba and is super, super precious and cute. It's about a girl who moves to Japan with her dad and is like trying to learn about things for the first time. It's adorable. It's gotten my sisters and I through some tough times. So if you need a pick-me-up manga, check out Azumanga Daioh, check out Yotsuba. They're both very silly, very cute, very fun. And going down to this shelf, yep, we got volume 13 here. I'm sorry, 14. I can count, I swear. These volumes come out notoriously slow, though. It's a big meme on the internet that we're so lucky to finally have 14. Next, we have my clamp shelf, and this is probably a really, really solid time to talk about how I organize my manga. So I organize by author name because I find authors to be incredibly important. Obviously, they're the ones who wrote these series, so I feel like we should give credit to them. And then if I have the same author writing a bunch of different series, then I'll just have them in chronological order. So, Clamp, a group of women who wrote a bunch of manga. So let's go ahead and get started with the Clamp section. First, we have X. And gonna be real with you guys, I probably know less about X in this video than I have in past collection videos because I haven't read this volume since I got it. And all I remember is reading it and being like, why do people like this? Like, it's very strange. And from what I understand, it's totally unfinished. Beautiful art, really not great story, in my opinion. Next we have Clover, and Clover, this is actually one of the first manga volumes I ever bought with my own money, and totally worth it. This is an unfinished series, so a lot of people you'll see on the internet complain, they're like, oh, it's not done, it's not finished, and it'll never be finished. Yeah, but when they say it's not finished, it means a lot different for Clover than it does for other series. So Clover is, in essence, 2 volumes of a story, and then it ends, and then the 3rd and 4th volume, which are also located in this omnibus, basically are prequel stories that tell you more about certain characters that appeared in the first 2 volumes. So in actuality, Clover is finished. It's just that we will never have the full context for what happened in those first 2 volumes, which is really sad. But please do not believe like the myth that like Clover is on hiatus and that the story was never finished. The story was, it's just that we don't really have as much information as we should have had about it. Next we have Magic Knight Re-Earth Part 1. Absolute classic, absolute banger. This is isekai before isekai was a thing. Just, if you like magical girls, if you like fantasy manga, if you like just really, really great storytelling and cool art from the 90s, definitely check out Magic Knight Re-Earth. This is one of my favorite manga of all time. It's just so stinking good. Unfortunately, the new editions of Magic Knight Re-Earth that are coming out, like the super awesome hardcover editions with the art books, way too expensive. I think the first 3 volumes, which are located in these omnibus, in this omnibus edition, I think it was like $120 or something like that. Yeah, no, I'm good with sticking with this. Next we have Miyuki-chan in Wonderland. 16 plus rating, guys. This is a solid 16 plus rating, just as a warning. This is a bunch of short stories about Miyuki-chan falling into different wonderlands. It is very strange. And the reason why I sandwiched it between Magic Knight Re-Earth 1 and 2 is technically it came out between these 2 series, so there you go. Then we have Magic Knight Re-Earth 2, and this, of course, is a sequel to Magic Knight Re-Earth. Despite adding giant mechs to the story, this somehow is not as good as the first one. The first one ends on this amazing note. I'm not going to say what happens, but if you've read the story, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's hardcore. And then we lead into this one, and it's like, whatever. That bad thing happened, and now we're okay. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, you can't do me dirty like that. And the ending of this is definitely not as impactful as the ending of the first one. But still, it's Clamp, and I love it. It's awesome. Next we have Cardcaptor Sakura, and I just knocked over poor Kiro here, so let me go fix him. Absolute classic, absolute banger. You can see the effects of Dark Horse in full action here. So we have the first 2 volumes here, which look like this, and the last 2 volumes here, which look like that. Ow. So this is the entire original series. Cardcaptor Sakura, as many people know, is a classic of magical girl stories. It still holds up today. It's a lot of fun. I adore these characters, just as I did when I was a kid. Only problem with Cardcaptor Sakura is that, gosh, there's some problematic relationships in this series. Just as one example, Sakura's parents, I believe that they met and got married when he was like in his late 20s and she was like 16. Yeah, oof. That's an oofaroonie. And that's, like, in my opinion, one of the least worst relationships in this series. There's some pretty nasty ones. And other than that, though, fantastic stuff. I mean, I really, really enjoy Cardcaptor Sakura. It's a classic for a reason. Check it out if you're looking into getting into magical girl stuff. Next we have Wish, and Wish is, oh man, this is actually one of the only volumes that survived from my childhood. This series is just near and dear to my heart. Fun fact about this, the main characters of Wish are based on Jotaro and Kakyoin from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The authors of, Wish, Clamp, they just really, really liked those two, wanted them to get together. So, interesting series about an angel who falls in love with a human, and he only gets to make one wish and as payment for saving the angel's life. And it's very, very interesting. Only 4 volumes, so check it out if you're interested. Next, we have Angelic Layer, and this is Clamp's attempt at an action battle manga. It's about fighting dolls that you control with your mind. It's cute, it's fun, nothing terribly special, but I hold it near and dear to my heart just because it was, again, a big part of my childhood. Next, we have Chobits, and oh man, this series. So these are the first 4 volumes packed in this omnibus, and this omnibus is really tough to read. I love it, but it's just so tough to read. Then we go down here to the Tokyo Pop editions back in the 2000s, and this completes the series. Now, Chobits, let me be just straight up real with you. Chobits is perhaps Clamp's best series that they've ever written. I mean, Chobits is just fantastic. and this is coming from someone who, I'm Catholic, so, like, I don't really deal with, like, sexual content in stories that well. Like, a lot of times I feel like stories just kind of push sexual content out there just to, like, you know, get some fan service in, or just to get some shock value in there. Chobits does this initially in its first volume, and then later on in the series, you start to get some really powerful messages about that stuff. Messages that I would have never expected to come out of Clamp. That final volume, man, its themes are just really, really cool. In my opinion, this is a very mature series, and not just for its content, in the fact that it tackles these subjects with a maturity that you usually don't see in manga. I easily recommend Chobits. Always high on my list of recommendations. Probably one of my favorite manga of all time. Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles. So we have volumes 1, 2, 3, and 19. Yeah, the reason why 19 is here is because this is back when I first started getting, like, actual money, and I wanted to buy manga so bad that I literally went to, like, I think it was like a Borders, and I found this volume, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's the latest volume of Tsubasa, I gotta buy it. And so I didn't even care that I didn't have the rest. I just wanted a volume of Tsubasa. This is a series about an alternate dimension Shounen and Sakura from Cardcaptor Sakura. And this is basically like, how do I put this the right way? It's basically like a grand tour around all of, like, the Clamp series and characters. There's a lot of cool Easter eggs for Clamp fans in this series. But aside from, like, a cool Easter egg celebration of Clamp, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't like this series. It started off so strong, which is why I have volumes 1 through 3 here. But it ended so terribly. Every question that was answered just was terrible and was not satisfactory at all. And I don't like the fact that this is technically canonical with Cardcaptor Sakura. They do a little bit with that series in this stories. I don't like it. I think it actually makes Cardcaptor Sakura worse as a result. So yeah, cautious recommendation for Tsubasa. If you like Clamp, do it. If you don't, skip it. However, oh, the beautiful one, XXXholic. I love it so much. I was willing to get crummy used volumes to fill up my collection. This is another issue with Clamp where I like to call it the Clamp syndrome, where they start off really strong. XXXholic started off really strong, much like Tsubasa. Where Tsubasa started getting worse, I think, earlier than XXXholic. XXXholic still suffered the same fate. So this is a series that is a crossover with Tsubasa, hence the X's. Japanese people consider X's to stand for crossover. And it's about a boy named Watanuki who sees spirits and wants to no longer see them, so he consults this, I guess what you would call a wish counselor or something like that, a counselor, a spiritual guide who deals with wishes. And she says, oh yeah, I can cure that for you. You just got to work in my shop for a while. And so it's a bunch of short stories that are threaded into one longer plot. And XXXholic is just so fun. It's basically like, how do I put this the right way? A celebration of all that is horror. And it's a really great time. Nothing too spooky, but there's a couple things in there that make me go, ooh, spooky. So, oh, it's so good. I just wish it didn't start stinking sometime. I forgot which volume it starts really stinking, but I know it's sometime after volume 10, so I'm not going to get any more past that. Next we have Kobato, and Kobato is pretty fun. It's about a girl who wants to fill up a jar full of good deeds that she does for other people, and I don't really want to say much more than that, because it's kind of one of those series where, like, the more you know about it, the less entertaining it is. The only thing I hate about Kobato, and I know I've mentioned this in the previous video, is that it spoils the ending of Wish. Read Wish before you read Kobato, because it straight up spoils the ending. The main character of Wish basically comes in out of nowhere and goes, oh hey, hi, I'm this person, and this is what happened to me. And I'm like, holy crud. It's not fair if you haven't read Wish, so please read Wish before you tackle Kobato. Otherwise, I love the art. Gosh, the art's so cute. Look at that. Aw, it's adorable. Next up we have Gate 7, and this is another one of those series, kind of like X, where, gonna be real with you, I probably knew more about this series in a past video. This is hot garbage. I remember this being just absolute trash, but the art's really good, so I only got 2 volumes. I actually did an unhaul a while back of some manga, not necessarily that I didn't like, but I didn't want to own anymore. I was highly considering getting rid of Gate 7 and also getting rid of X, but the only reason I haven't is because they're Clamp volumes, and I love Clamp stories even though they're trash, it's just, there's something magical about owning clamps, so I feel like I'll own these for as long as I can. Next we have Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card Arc, and can I just say, so good. So good to have my good friend Sakura back. And let me tell you, I was initially really worried about this series because I thought it was going to hit that awful clamp syndrome. In fact, Cardcaptor Sakura and Chobits are, in my opinion, the only two series, and I guess Clover technically, and Wish. Oh, no, Wish too. Okay, these four are the only clamp series that I feel like haven't hit clamp syndrome. So I was really scared for Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card Arc, but it seems like they're really making sure that this is a success. Every answer that's been answered so far, as far as the mystery of the story goes, has been really satisfying. It seems like they got, I don't know, it seems like they have like a little bit more motivation to make this one special. My only complaint is that the volumes are really tiny. I mean, look at that. That's super tiny. But it's so good to see Sakura and her friends again, especially in a story that actually is like good, thank goodness. Next we have The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess Volume 1, and I actually have volumes 1 through I think at least 5 on the classroom shelf. But the reason I have this one is, what up? I got the signatures of the author. So cool. Super cool. Yeah, this has been the bane of some people's existence. I know other manga tubers have complained about the Legend of Zelda manga selling so well, but you know what? If it sells well, good. I'm glad, because we need manga to sell well, guys. Manga selling well means that other manga are going to sell well, so don't complain. We also have Hellsing. My friend Kai recommended this to me, and it is hilarious, especially as a Catholic, to read stories about, vampires and evil Catholics, and yeah, it's just hysterical. Next we have Princess Jellyfish, omnibuses 1 through 9. This series is special. This series is so special to me. I absolutely love it. I have the author's autobiography blank canvas at the school, but I have this one here because it's mature, where that one is really not. Princess Jellyfish is about an otaku girl who basically is coaxed out of hiding from a cross-dressing boy. Like he basically like brings light to her life, and the whole journey with those two is it's just fantastic. And something I really like, and I mentioned this in the past, is that the author really respects otaku in this series, as in like people who are obsessive collectors. She does poke fun at them, but it's not in a way that is mean or demeaning. It's just really a crud ton of fun. Princess Jellyfish is definitely one of those series where it features older characters, people who are in their late teens and 20s and 30s and sometimes even 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I love seeing older characters in manga, especially in such a fun series like this. Next up we have The Gray Man down here, and I have all the omnibuses up to 24. I'm not going to collect any more than this because, well, The Gray Man stopped being good after about here because the author got really sick, I believe. And after that point, the story just kind of fell to crap. I'm going to be real with you. It's really sad, too, because this is really a classic shonen. It's a lot of fun. The art in particular is super dark and mysterious. Like, I just love the art. It's so pretty. Crowley is my favorite character. Miranda's really cool, too. Unfortunately, this also suffers from, like, the shonen trope of, like, unimportant characters getting forgotten and thrown away by the wayside when they're not really important to the plot anymore. But yeah, The Gray Man was fun for what it was, and I hope it ends on a good note. I really do, for people who are still reading it. Next we have volumes 1 through 10 of Land of the Lustrous in Japanese. The reason why I got the Japanese edition as well as the English edition is just because I love these covers. They're so pretty. But also because, well, I got the first 5 volumes thinking that this was never going to be published in English. I thought this was really like, unknown series that wasn't going to get any attention. So I wanted to support it as much as I could by getting those volumes. And yeah, no, it's got a hit anime. Everybody knows about it now. Land of the Lustrous is always my highest recommendation. It's one of my favorite manga of all time. It's just beautiful. Like, trust me when I say this, it's just beautiful. And it's always a recommendation for me. Please check out this beautiful series. Next, and hey, this is also a Studio Orange adaptation, anime adaptation that is, Beastars. I plan to get more volumes, aside from volume 1. From what I've read, I absolutely love it. It's basically Zootopia, but what if the animals actually ate each other? I love the unconventional art style. It's just so cool. Check out Beastars. I hope to get more. Next, I have Attack on Titan volumes 1 through 18 here, along with the volume 17 special edition, which came with a bonus episode of the anime. Hello, Levi and Armin. Those are easily my favorite characters. All the way to volume 24. And I'm going to level with you guys. I stopped collecting at 24 because I kind of lost interest in the series. The ending is looking like it's approaching soon, and I hope it ends on a good note. That's all I'm going to say. I just kind of don't like where the story's gone, but I've heard from a lot of people that that's not an uncommon thought. Next, we have Attack on Titan Lost Girls, and this is a manga adaptation of a light novel about Annie and Mikasa, and this is really stinking good. The Annie, I gotta admit though, the Annie volume's way better than the Mikasa volume, and Annie's my girl. She's awesome. She's great. Annie's like the one reason I'm still reading the series. I gotta know what happens to her. Next, we have Attack on Titan No Regrets, and this is the backstory of Levi. So if you're interested as to how Levi became like the soldier that he is, this is his story. It's pretty good. You can tell, though, that the author had to tiptoe around some story elements. Like, it starts later in his life when he's like a teenager, so you're not really sure what happened before that point, etc. But for what it is, it's pretty good. If you're a fan of Levi, definitely check it out. Next, we have Uzumaki by Junji Ito, and you know Uzumaki. If you don't, it's a classic. This story, I read it when I was younger. I read Scanlations. Yeah, scared the ever-living crap out of me. Basically, an infestation of spirals takes over this town, and whew, it's spooky. Yeah, the story that really gets to me is when the lady's like trying to destroy any spiral she can find, and then she ends up finding out that there's, well, your eardrum's shaped like a spiral. Yeah, no. Bad story. It's a classic. Check it out if you like horror. And I also have Junji Ito's Cat Diary, which is his autobiography about living with his cats, and it's very stinking funny because he uses his same art style for his horror for this story, and oh my gosh, it's so good. And it's a very sweet story about these cats too. It's actually, it made me tear up a bit, I'm not gonna lie. Next we have Parasite. Hey, speaking of more horror. And I actually read the rest of the series digitally. I didn't like the covers on my shelf. They're all very spooky. And this is a classic for sure. I absolutely adore it. It's about this kid who gets basically, his arm basically turns into like a parasite alien. Like the parasite alien aimed for his brain, missed, and hit his arm instead. So the two have to work together to survive, and it's super, super creepy. Then we have Neo Parasite M. And this is a series of short stories written by male authors. There's another book called Neo Parasite F that's written by female authors. And the reason why I sought out the series is because the author of Teppu has a short story in this. And don't worry, we'll get to what Teppu is if you don't know about what that series is. And yeah, so the only story I don't like in here is the fairy tale one. All the other ones are really good, but the fairy tale one literally just has like fairy tale characters that are like possessed by parasites, and it's like, okay, like the rest of the authors actually like came up with like original stories and original takes, but you just kind of inserted your own characters. I don't get it. Next up we have School Live. Hey, riding that horror train. I mean, everything's fine in School Live, don't worry about it. I mean, the cover gives it away. This is a manga about a group of girls who live in school. They call it the School Live Club because the school has been rampaged by zombies. So they're trying to make by saying, oh, we're living in the School Live Club. Everything's fine. Ah, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, so the twist is that they've been fighting against zombies this whole time. The only reason I haven't continued collecting the series is because there's a lot of weird fan service in it, and I just wasn't a huge fan of that. But otherwise, it's interesting. It's very sad, though. I mean, no surprise there, but it's very, very sad. Then we have Requiem for the Rose King. This is a manga adaptation of The War of the Roses, and whoo boy, it's very pretty. Very, very pretty. Interesting cameo appearance by hashtag my girl Joan of Arc as a spirit ghost mind like thought person thing. It's very strange, but I don't know, I enjoyed it for what it was for 2 volumes. Don't think I'm gonna get any more besides that though. Next we have Dead Man Wonderland, and this is another classic from my childhood. Dead Man Wonderland, what a crazy story this is.
guy basically gets accused of killing his entire class, so he gets sent to this ultra prison called Dead Man Wonderland. From what I remember, unfortunately, again, reading scans from my childhood, the beginning was excellent. And then, as the story went on, kind of tapered off. So I decided to buy the first 2 volumes in support of the series, especially because, you know, I was a dirty Scanlator supporter, so... Thank you so much for this wonderful series, and I'm sorry for scanlating. Next, we have Livingstone, and this is by the same author. I've only had the first volume so far. This was actually a recommendation, and I want to get more. This is a really cool series about basically the Livingstones are like souls. So like you and I have like souls in our bodies, stones, and these guys are like people who like repair and fix those stones when they go broken. It's really, really cool. It's got a lot of feels. You can tell that I think the author of Dead Man Wonderland has matured a little bit with this series, and that's not to say that I'm saying that all manga authors should write very serious stories and you all should mature. Like, that's not me saying that. I'm just saying that you can tell, I think, that he or she, I think it's a he, wanted to do something a little bit more serious, and I think it works really, really stinking well. Blue Exorcist. What up, Blue Exorcist? This is a guilty pleasure of mine. I've talked about this series before. Still only have 8 volumes. Probably won't get any more than that. I have been reading the updated chapters on the Shounen Jump app, and man, has a decreasing quality. It's so sad. But for what it's worth, I really enjoy Blue Exorcist. It's a big guilty pleasure of mine. And I'm hoping it ends on a good note. I'm really hoping that the author ends strong. Next up, we have Blood Plus. This is a manga adaptation of the anime. I don't really know which one's better. I think the anime is. I'm going to be real with you. The manga hits a lot less hard than the anime does with its punches. Characters still die in the manga, but they don't... I mean, like, the manga is just like... How do I put this the right way? The manga feels like a PG version of the PG-13 anime, if that makes sense. But it's still a fun ride. And then we have... oh, hello. We have Kowloon Nights, which is a story about Haji, who is one of the main characters of Blood Plus. And this is like very much like a boys' love sort of thing with him and like another guy, and I didn't really like it that much. Haji is only for Saya. This is the ultimate ship. Don't break that ship. Yeah, if you like vampires and fun like that, Blood Plus is definitely something you should check out. It's a very interesting series, but I might recommend the anime over the manga adaptation. All right, coming up here, all the way up to the second shelf, we have My Love Story, the Oda, the One Piece author's recommendation for you. And my recommendation as well. My Love Story is a fantastic tale about a young lad who falls in love with this girl, and she's in love with him, and it's so cute, because he is heckin' huge, super athlete, and she's like this tiny little thing. Yeah, it's adorable, it's wonderful, it makes me believe in true love. I just, look at that lovely man. It's amazing. If you want a wholesome, good time, check out My Love Story, especially for people who are really kind of shy or adverse to these types of stories, like shoujo-ish stories. My Love Story is a great place to start because it's from the guy's perspective, and it definitely doesn't... How do I put this the right way? It doesn't do a lot of the shoujo kind of like will they, won't they sort of thing. I mean, they will. They will from moment one. You know they will. And then the rest of the series is just exploring that wonderful relationship. High recommendation. Next, we have one of the only surviving volumes from my childhood, Jujiko's Champion Cup Theater. This is a gag manga that's based on a mascot of it's like a shop in Akihabara that I've actually been to called Gamers, and it was crazy because I actually got to go there back when I was in Japan, and seeing that real shop for the first time was just wow. It was like seeing like one of your childhood cartoons come to life. But anyway, so this is very odd. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody today because it's based on characters who really aren't in anime and manga like spheres anymore. This character used to be super, super popular. Now she's not. So yeah, blast from the past if you want to check it out, but otherwise, wouldn't recommend it. Next we have these volumes here. So we have My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, My Solo Exchange Diary, volumes 1 and 2. Some of you guys who are familiar with my channel would know that I did not review these for my manga pickups, even though I picked these up. And the reason why is because they have adult content in it. It's simply a matter of fact that I just don't review manga with adult content in my pickup videos. Here's what I'll say. I got these manga volumes, though, because even though they have adult content, they actually talk about some really, really serious and important issues with anxiety and depression. These are both issues that I faced when I was younger, when I didn't know how to take care of myself. These days, my diet, exercise, and mindfulness exercises really keep me from going into those dark places. But when I was younger, I didn't know that, so I ended up falling into some really deep holes as a kid. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you look into those things, look into fixing your diet, look into becoming physically active, look into mindfulness, religious life, etc., to help you get out of those dark places. And if necessary, look to medication as well. So in my opinion, this first volume, My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, really, really, really does a great job highlighting these issues. These last two, however, it's just so sad seeing the author, and this is an autobiography, seeing the author fall again and again and again into those tendencies. So while I highly recommend the first one, if you are of appropriate age to read it, I don't recommend these last two. Really, really don't. So otherwise, awesome. I'm glad that somebody's highlighting these very important issues. It's just sad that they had to do it in, this way. I just can't review it on my channel. It's as simple as that. Next, we have, again, and I've talked about this series recently on some of my manga pickup videos. I love, love, love Again. I'm going to show you volume 2 because it's got the main character on it. I love awful main characters, and this guy's certainly an awful main character. He's a delinquent who hits his head, falls down some stairs, bonks his head, goes back in time 3 years to the beginning of his high school career, and gets to do it all over, again. And he joins the male cheerleading squad, and it's just a bonkers series. It's really, really fun. I have a suspicious feeling, though, that this series got canceled, or at least the author had to rush it toward the end, because volume 12 kind of comes in out of nowhere. There's like an arc where they're like, oh, we gotta do this thing, this very important thing, and then, volume 12 comes around, and shuckaroony, we have this other problem now that we have to fix all of a sudden in like 2 chapters. And it's like, really? Yeah, okay. But other than that, again, is just a really fun time, and I really enjoyed it for what it was. Next, we have Bleach, a classic in Shounen. So I have volumes 1 through 6 collected in omnibus format, volume 21, which features my favorite character Shinji, and volume 27, which features my favorite chapter of the series, Goodbye Halcyon Days. Oh, that chapter's so wonderful and so sad. Volumes 1 through 6 are some of my favorite stuff in Shounen. I just adore it. I love Ichigo's adventures with Rukia, facing the Hollows in his town, but Soul Society arc is good. I really enjoy Soul Society arc as well. Kenpachi in particular is a fantastic character. It's just that everything else besides that, not really a huge fan of. But Bleach, as you guys know, it's a classic, so I had to own some of my favorite parts of the series, and I'm glad that I do have them. They're very cool. Next we have some Madoka manga, and I'm going to go ahead and move Sayaka and Kyoko here. Hello. Goodbye. So we have these 3 volumes, which are a manga adaptation of the TV show. I'd recommend the TV show over this manga adaptation, but from what I'll tell you, this is an excellent, excellent way to own the series without actually owning the series, because that anime adaptation is so gosh darn expensive, so I'm perfectly fine with owning these volumes. Then we have The Different Story, which is a manga that focuses in particular on Kyoko and Mami, and if you've seen the series, you would know why a story that focuses on these 2 characters is very interesting, and I absolutely adore it. I just think it's wonderful, but do not read this series until you either read these volumes or watch the original show. Trust me when I say this. Don't pick up these volumes, because it'll spoil the entire TV show for you. Then we have the manga adaptation of the movie Rebellion, which cracks me up because on the front it says the movie Rebellion, but this is a manga. Why are you calling it the movie Rebellion? I bet it's like a branding thing. I don't know. But this manga, again, not as good as the actual movie, but the 3rd volume helps to explain the antagonist motivations, I think, a little bit more than the movie. So I would say give this a try, just if you're a fan of the movie, because I think this manga series did justice to the characters' motivations. Again, not as good, but I thought that little tidbit was pretty cool. Then we have Tart Magica, Well Magi Tart Magica. So I have the first 3 volumes here. And coming down here, hello, Homura and Madoka. Mommy's actually my favorite character. I'll show you really quick. I actually have Mommy over here on my desk, right in my workspace, so I can see her better. I have volumes 4 and 5 of Tart Magica, and Tart Magica is, so Tart is like a shortened version of Jeanne d'Arc, so like Tart Arc, it doesn't work that well in my opinion, but whatever. So this is a spin-off about Joan of Arc as a magical girl, which if you guys have seen the series, you know that Joan of Arc is referenced like for a little tiny bit in the original series. So it's very interesting to see a spin-off based on a character who's just barely referenced in the original, literally seconds of screen time in the original. But yeah, this is a really interesting series in that the author tried their gosh darndest to keep it as close to the original story as they could, while also adding in that magical girl flair, almost to, I think, a fault, because you'll be reading the story and it'll get to a point where it's like, oh, and let us explain the actual real world events that happened during this time. And it's like, did you really need to? Did you really need to? I think the story's kind of getting clogged up. But other than that, pretty fun time. Definitely not as good as the original story, but I love Joan of Arc. She's my confirmation saint. You know, being Catholic, you got to choose a confirmation saint to look up to and pray to and ask, you know, for them to pray for you. And Joan of Arc is who I picked. So pretty interesting to read a magical girl interpretation of a saint that I hold so dear. Then we have Homura's Revenge. So this is basically like, how do I put this the right way? It's like an alternate universe version of Well Magi Madoka Magica, and it's hard to explain what it's actually about because it kind of spoils the original story, so I won't read the different story over this one. Don't read this one. But if you're a fan of the different story, if you're a fan of the character of Homura, hey, give it a try. Why not? It's just, in my opinion, I think the different story does what this one does a lot better. Then we have Homura Tamura, and this is something I'm not going to recommend just because it's so gosh darn expensive. These volumes are, wait for it, you ready? 17 buckaroos for this much. Yeah, that's disgusting. Yen Press, what are you doing? Oh, excuse me, Madoka and Homura. I'm just like leaning all these volumes on poor Homura. This is a fun gag manga about basically like a bunch of alternate dimensions all like colliding into each other, and it's interesting. I don't know if I would recommend it though. This feels like a manga about like what people think these characters are all about versus what they actually are all about. So like Madoka, for example, is a ditz, Kyoko's just eating all the time, Mommy's stuck up, Sayaka's an idiot, and it's like, it just feels like a hyper like parody of these characters, which in some stories works well, and then other stories in this series doesn't. Then we have Magica Record, and there was an anime that just came out of this mobile game, which this is another adaptation of that mobile game. I'm looking to get more volumes of the series just because I want to see which adaptation does better, the anime or the manga. And so far, at least from what this first volume has given us, I think the anime is going to win, but this is all right. I was not a big fan of like playing through the mobile game, so I'm glad we have an adaptation that I can actually enjoy. Again, definitely not as good as the original series, but I'm always game for a Madoka spinoff. All right, gonna move these boys back. I mean, girls. Oh my gosh. I always call everything like boys, so that's kind of funny. Welcome back. Then we have Assassination Classroom, which has some of the most cool volume covers ever. Oh my gosh, they're so fun. So this series is one that, you know, it's a very, 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 very strange recommendation from me to you. It's about a class that wants to kill their teacher, but their teacher is actually an alien from outer space who's threatening to destroy the world. So that's why they got to kill their teacher, and that's all I'm going to say about this. You should really go into this one with very, very low expectations. I'm only owning the first 3 volumes myself, but I read the rest digitally. It's a great time, and I love the ending. The ending in particular really got to me. Everyone's Getting Married. This is another recommendation. I typically don't like romance stories, but this one struck home. I really quite enjoyed how the characters were older. They're in their late 20s, early 30s. That was a lot of fun. So good time. Probably not going to get any more, but I appreciate it for what it's worth. Then we have Chrono Crusade and Nuns with Guns. Gosh, I love this sort of trope when I see like Christian sort of like characters with like guns and, you know, saying prayers to fend off evil demons and stuff like that. I mean, it's definitely an appropriation of my faith, but gosh, I can laugh along with it, can't I? It's my goal to eventually own all 8 volumes of the series, but the volumes are kind of hard to find right now, so I'll hold off. But this series has one of the most depressing endings you'll ever see. Kind of slight spoiler for saying that, but that's all I'm going to say about it. Don't go into this if you're not looking to have a sad time. Next, we have Trigun, the complete original series, and this is one of those series that I own, and I just need to really get down to reading. For some reason, I just have zero motivation to read this. Trigun has always been on my radar, and I just, for some reason, just don't feel like sitting down and reading it. But you know what I did sit down and read was Blood Blockade Battlefront, which is by the same author, and gosh, I love this series so much. It's basically like a collection of short stories. There's very, very, very little plot to tie them all together. I mean, it has the same characters, etc., but it's not until this final volume that the plot really starts kicking in. And yeah, you can see the Dark Horse curse in full action here. We got volume 1, looks like this, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 through 10 that look like that. This is a manga collector's absolute nightmare. Next, we have Death Note, and Death Note was a series that earned me my first set of dislikes on YouTube. So I'm just going to go ahead and celebrate that by saying exactly what got me those dislikes. Death Note is sexist. It is, matter of fact. I say it loud, I say it proud. The women in this series are absolute idiots. They're lectured to by their guy counterparts. They are there to look pretty and almost nothing else. And yes, there was that one lady earlier in the series, but she's still an idiot. Now, that being said, does this mean that I hate Death Note because it has some elements of sexism? No, I think it's a great series. Does this mean that I can't recommend it? Absolutely not. I highly recommend it, especially if you want to experience a really intense, awesome thriller. I mean, Death Note is just fun. It's a classic for a reason, guys. So even though it has those flaws, does that mean it's bad? No, just means that it has those flaws, and that's it. So really great time. And I also have volume 13, which is hilariously titled How to Read, which is a character guide. Yeah, I loved this series as a kid. It was a lot of fun. Yes, it's got problems, but it's really great time. Next, we have All You Need Is Kill. All You Need Is Kill is a manga adaptation of a light novel by the same name. And that light novel inspired the movie Edge of Tomorrow, which featured Tom Cruise. And in my opinion, I think Edge of Tomorrow is actually better than All You Need Is Kill. I like the ending way more anyway. But this is by the artist, not the author, the artist of Death Note. So if you're a fan of the art of Death Note and you want to check out another story featuring that guy, definitely check out All You Need Is Kill. Then we have Wanted, which is the author of One Piece, Oda's collection of short stories before he started One Piece. It also contains the pilot of One Piece called Romance Dawn. I really, really wish Viz Media would publish this in English. Please, Viz Media, I beg of you. It's got a lot of cool stories, and a lot of One Piece is actually referenced, or rather, One Piece references this particular collection of stories. For example, this character, Ryuma, is featured in the arc Thriller Bark, so please publish that in English, Viz, I beg of you. Then we have One Piece, volumes 1 through 3, and that's it. Nah, just kidding. We also have, I'm going to move this promotional art of One Piece Film Gold really quick, volumes 4, I'm going to pass my figures here, to 46, then we got volume 47 all the way to 86. Then we got 87 to 92. Yeah, I own a lot of One Piece. Can you tell it's my favorite shonen series like ever? Yeah, I bet you can. Just going through some of these volumes. I collected these used mostly. There's some here that are used. So you can see in particular, if you come up here, actually, you can see a lot of like library marks and stuff like that. A lot of people collect, excuse me, Brooke, a lot of people collect these three. Oh gosh, his arm! What have I done? Oh no, a tragedy has befallen us. A lot of people collect these 3-in-1s. The reason why I haven't collected these 3-in-1s, or at least haven't collected any more than this volume, is because every single stinking volume has Luffy on the side. And although I love Luffy as a character, it's like, you miss out on all of these great colors and all this great art. And not only that, but they also crop the art to, again, only feature Luffy on the cover, which, oh my gosh, you're missing out on some fantastic art. I mean, just to show you this next volume, like, gosh, the art is just so good. How can you miss out on that? Favorite arcs. Just gonna sound them off here. Really, really enjoy Little Garden, which is a mini arc in the Alabasta saga. Really, really enjoy Water 7 and Nez Lobby. This is where I caught up on One Piece, and it's a big, big reason as to why Usopp is one of my favorite characters of all time. Thriller Bark, is my absolute favorite arc of One Piece. That covers volume 46 to 50. I just love mystery horror stuff, so Thriller Bark was absolutely my jam, although I personally think that Water 7 is the best arc in the manga. Then, coming through here, really, really enjoyed Punk Hazard, which was around these volumes. Some of my favorite characters, Shiki Perona, Nami, and Baby 5. Baby 5 is actually based on a Bobo character. I'll talk more about that later. Whole Cake Island arc, which covers about, I think, volumes 81 to 89. Again, another one of my favorite arcs. And we're starting off into Wano, which Wano is such a good arc. I have some foreign volumes here as well. One Piece Green is a character guide to some characters that appeared earlier in the series. It also has some beta art for some of the characters that appeared later in the series, like Brook, Chopper, etc. Pretty cool stuff. I also have, Shishigi. I also have Blue Deep over here. This is another character guide. The reason why I sandwiched it in between 60 and 61 is because they have a chapter called Strong World in here, which unfortunately they published it in English, but the only way you can get it is by getting a huge collector's box of volumes, which I already own the volumes, so I'm not going to buy it. So this is the best I can do. So I just put Strong World in between those two volumes where it belongs. And then I have these volumes in Japanese. These volumes in particular have little Easter eggs inside, which I have shown off before, but I'll at least show off this volume again. There we go. On the inside, you can see little panda man there. He's looking fancy. Very cute. Then we have these two volumes, which are near and dear to my heart. So this first volume is volume 81. And when I was in Japan, this was the latest volume of One Piece that was published. So I got it as a souvenir. And if I ever go back to Japan, I plan on getting the latest volume as a way to kind of mark the date that I was there. So this is volume 81. So they were in the Zou arc back when I was in Japan back in 2016. And this is a volume of, I believe this is volume 85, and this is an edition from Hong Kong that my friend Shark gave me, so super, super cool. Absolutely love that edition. Then we have this binder here. This is a Vivre card binder. So in the series, a Vivre card is a card that helps you find a person. A Vivre card in, merchandise is like another character sort of guide thing. So pretty cool stuff. I absolutely love these cards, collecting these cards. I plan on getting more if I ever go back to Japan. Pretty fun stuff. Although I got these in America in Mitsuwa Marketplace in the Chicagoland area in a store called Kinokuniya. Next we have Komi Can't Communicate. This is an adorable series that I originally got because I wanted to help some of my weeb students who have issues communicating relate to a character that's like them. And guess what? No. There's a lot of mature stuff in this series. So when I got it and I read it, I was like, and absolutely not. We're not putting this in the classroom. So I still got 3 volumes anyway because I thought it was cute. But I don't know if I'm going to get any more past that. It's adorable, though. Something that I will say is that a lot of these series that feature a lot of girl characters, and just like one guy character tend to be like kind of creepy to me. I don't really like that sort of harem stuff. But the guy character in this series, he only has eyes for Komi. And the other girls are girls that he and Komi have specifically picked out to be her friend. I love that. I think that's so wonderful and so wholesome. So even though I'm probably not going to get any more volumes past this point, Komi Can't Communicate has my full support. I think that's wonderful. Next we have Pop Team Epic. This is a comedy series, and I'm not going to show you front covers because they're flipping the bird, but they're doing it on the side anyway. Pop Team Epic is hilarious. That's all I'm going to say. It's a great time. It basically feels like an extremely rude version of something like Azumanga Daioh, another 4-panel manga, and yeah, check it out if you need a good laugh. Next we have Soul Eater volumes 1 through 4. 6, I can count. Oh my gosh. Good golly, I can count, I promise. Soul Eater is fantastic. It's a very, how do I put this the right way? Goofy series. So it features a fantastic female protagonist. Maka in particular is probably one of my favorite protagonists in Shounen. She's just awesome. She kicks butt. But it's interesting because, like, you know, it's very sexual at the same time too. Like, you'll have Maka, and Maka is never once played up for the camera, but you have other characters, just for example, Blair here, who just super plays up for the camera. And I think I like that the author strikes an even mix of female characters who just kick butt and female characters who want to have some fun too. It makes me feel like this author really sees these characters as people and not as just objects there to make the reader like happy or satisfied. So yeah, Soul Eater is a lot of fun. Again, I would consider this another classic. Volumes 14 and 15. I got these at a convention when I was like 18 because I thought, I was like, oh man, owning Japanese volumes is cool. And you know what? It is. it is cool, 18-year-old me. To Your Eternity. This is by the same author as A Silent Voice. A Silent Voice is currently on my classroom shelf. It's not going to be featured in this video. This is the author's return to manga, and it's good. It's real good. I don't think it's as good as A Silent Voice, but I mean, it's a very interesting story. It's about this life form that's immortal, and it basically, every time it interacts with something and that thing dies, it can then take on its form. So it starts off as a dog, and then it becomes a boy, and then later on it starts to take over other things as well. It's a very sad story. There's a lot of death, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm very, very interested to see how it ends. I think the manga is approaching its final arc right now, and it's getting absolutely bonkers. Then we have One Punch Man, a little Saitama, so cute. Volumes 1 through 4, and volumes 5 through 58. No, I'm kidding. It's 18. I swear I can count. One Punch Man's awesome. I mean, if you guys don't know One Punch Man, I don't know what to say to you. One Punch Man's fantastic. It's got great art. Look at that art. Fantastic. Special, beautiful, incredible art. I mean, but seriously, it does. Many people know this already, but this is a manga adaptation of a webcomic. The author of One Punch Man, is not the best artist, although his art has been getting way, way better with time. There's some stuff in Mob Psycho 100, his other series, that is just breathtaking. So this is the manga adaptation of that webcomic, and Murata is just an incredible artist. Unfortunately, his series Ice Shield 21 is on my classroom shelf, so you won't be seeing it here. But definitely, if you're a fan of superheroes, this is another one of those manga where I'm like, I would recommend this to somebody who's interested in getting into manga for the first time. So, you know, if they're into fantasy, check out Fullmetal Alchemist. If they're into superheroes, check out One Punch Man. It's great. Next, we have Teppu. Hey, remember how I said I was going to talk about Teppu? Here we go. We have Volume 1 and Volume 6 in Japanese. And unfortunately, this is the only way you're going to get Teppu. Japanese, that's it. Sorry. Teppu is a martial arts manga about a girl who basically is the villain of her story. So it's a real rare sports manga where you see things from the anti-hero's perspective. Basically, she's a genius at sports, but she gets beat up basically by this other girl. She's like, oh, martial arts, I'll try that. Yeah, why not? I'm like great at any sport. I'll beat the crap out of you. And then that girl beats her up and she's like, actually, just kidding. I hate Naruto. My name is Sasuke and I'm going to become the baddest martial artist ever and kick your butt. And it's so good. It's only 7 volumes. So I plan on, if I return to Japan, I plan on collecting the rest of the series just to support this amazing, awesome manga. But yeah, it's just really sad because I don't think we're ever going to get it in the States. Maybe I should start a campaign or something. Next, we have Way of the House Husband. This was actually another recommendation, and this series is so stinking funny. Oh my gosh, I love it. It's basically about this gangster who becomes, well, a house husband, and it's all about, like, the shenanigans he gets into, where, like, he's actually a really good house husband. It's just that everybody else thinks that either he's way, way, way too scary, or that he's still a gangster, and oh my gosh, it's a comedy of basically people getting the wrong impression of this guy and the hilarity that ensues. And the art's really stinking good. I mean, gosh, look at that art. That is amazing. High recommendation from me. I can't wait to see where this series goes. Next we have Inside Mari, and oh boy. Yeah, that's a cover. It's about a guy who wakes up in his crush's body, and it sounds like that would be the kind of story that you would be like, okay, I know exactly where this is going to go, and, you know, it's going to be perverted, it's going to be gross. Inside Mari is actually a bit of a horror story. There's definitely something going on. I mean, I've only read the first volume, but there's more to this story than just, oh, I woke up in my crush's body, haha. Like, no, it's like, things get freaky, and you think it's going to go to weird places, and it pretty much doesn't, at least in the first volume, which I really appreciate. The guy's actually really respectful. Very interesting to see. Very, very interesting, to see what happens next. Next, we have Dorohedoro, and this was another recommendation, and I want to support this series so bad. Oh my gosh, why are the volumes so expensive? Oh my gosh. And yes, the parental advisory is a very, 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 very good thing. Please put that in more volumes. Like, I can't tell you enough. This is written by a female author, which usually I don't point that out, but like, gosh, for such a violent manga, like, that's pretty cool. I definitely want to see more female authors breaking into these types of stories. I want to support this series so much more. It's like this post-apocalyptic punk story about a guy who's trying to break this curse that makes him look like a lizard, and it's just a lot of fun. It's very, very humorous. It kind of reminds me of the kind of stuff that would air on Adult Swim back in like the 2000s that I would watch so late at night that I knew I wasn't supposed to be watching, but I'd watch anyway. Definitely want to support this a lot more. Next we have Angels of Death, which again, another recommendation. This one apparently, I didn't know this, was based on a video game. It's about a girl who has to team up with a serial killer to get out of like this crazy like death game. And yeah, pretty fun. I'm interested to see where the story goes. I'm actually maybe more interested in playing the game to see what that's all about. Next we have Bobobo. I love Bobobo. Can I just say that? Am I allowed to say that? Is it legal for me to tell you how much I love Bobobo? Bless this series. Bless this wonderful series that never got a full release in the States. This is a single volume, which collects the Halukalani arc. Guy obsessed with money. And this is volume 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And no, I actually can count. I swear to sweet goodness I can. The reason why I told you those numbers is because those are the actual volumes. For some reason, they skipped volumes 1 through 10 and marked these as 1 through 5. And no, they're not 1 through 5. These are definitely volumes 11 through 15. I don't know why they did that. And I'm really sad that this series never, ever finished in the States. Gosh, it's just so sad. I really, really hope they republish this. I don't think they ever will, but that'd be really cool. And remember how I said Baby 5 was based on a character in Bobo? Yeah, definitely Torpedo Girl. There's literally a moment where she turns into basically Torpedo Girl in One Piece. It's awesome. What a great tribute. Next we have Persona 3, the manga. And man, I love the art. Oh, the art's so cool. I'm going to tell you straight up, though. If you're interested in the story of Persona, don't read the manga. Just play Persona 3. They tell the story so much better in the video game. But as far as this manga adaptation is concerned, if you're a fan of Persona 3, you've played the game, you just want more material based on that story, yeah, I'd recommend this. It's interesting. They handle some of the scenes in the game a little bit differently in the manga, and it's a lot of fun. But again, if you're looking into getting into the actual story of this, you're like, hey, I want to experience Persona, don't do the manga, do the video games. The video games do it way better. Blackgate. Woo, look at this chunky boy. So Blackgate is a manga, full series in this omnibus, by the way, about an agent and the kid he's looking after who they like fight against these gates. They like close these black gates, that when these black gates open in our world, they end up causing disaster and calamity. It takes a crazy turn about halfway through, though, and for what I thought was going to be like, a bunch of short stories about these two characters solving these supernatural issues, turns into some wacky stuff. Not sure if I'd recommend it, but if you're looking for a supernatural story, all collected in one great volume, yeah, this is a good one to collect. Blackgate, pretty cool. All right, we got one last shelf with only a few shelves that actually contain manga on them. Starting off with Blood Plus Adagio. This is a side story featuring Saya and Haji during the Russian Revolution, and this is awesome. This is the manga to own if you're a fan of Blood Plus. It's only 2 volumes, and it packs a punch. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, just an overall really great time. And because I really enjoyed this, somebody recommended years ago that I check out After School Charisma, which is written by the same author. And man, does this author love some historical fiction. So this series is about a bunch of clones of historical figures who all attend this high school and the problems that they get themselves into. And yes, hashtag your girl Joan of Arc makes an appearance as well. So it's kind of a crazy series. I will say, though, later volumes not as good as those initial first volumes. Later on, the series kind of just becomes less and less interesting. In my opinion, it's more interesting when they're actually like in the school itself, having to deal with each other and who they are as people and growing into either the historical figures they want to be or somebody else entirely. Later on, they start to enter the real world and things just become less interesting as a result. So, I don't know. Interesting series. I'd give it a try if you're really into like history and stuff and want to see alternative depictions of what historical figures really could be. Next, we have Seven Deadly Sins, volumes 1 through 13. I read the rest digitally. Seven Deadly Sins is started off real strong, and the art in the manga is, in my opinion, some of the best art I've ever seen in manga, in particular when it comes to action sequences. Like in this first volume, there's this scene where Melodius, the main character, is throwing a spear at another character. I believe his name is Gilthunder. And oh my gosh, just the impact of the throw itself is just so cool. Yeah, Seven Deadly Sins is just incredible. The only problem is it's got a lot of gross fan service, gotta admit. And otherwise, it's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of fun characters. Escanor in particular is just so stinking cool. Only problem is he shows up way past this point in volume like 19. Ouch. Next we have Saint Tail, and unfortunately I don't own the third volume. I can't find it cheap online. The reason why I say the third volume in particular is because the third volume was the first manga volume I ever read. Ever. Like, that's a big deal for me. This is the first two volumes. These are the first two volumes, used. It's a magical girl story about a girl who's a magician. So she's technically a magical girl, but she uses magic tricks instead of, well, magic. And it's really, really cute. It's got a Christian element to it too. Her like best friend is a nun in training, and they pray together before every mission. Super, super cute. Highly would recommend if you're interested in old school magical girl stuff. Next we have Ranma Omnibuses, volumes 1 through 18, coming down to 19 and 20, 21 and 22, 23, 24, and then the rest in the older edition, which unfortunately is one of those where they flipped the volume. So people are punching with their left hands instead of their rights, etc. Yeah, not great, but otherwise a really, really good publication of the series. Yeah, and that's really why I didn't get the rest of the omnibuses, because I already had these volumes. I was a bigger fan of some of the later stuff than I was in the earlier stuff, which is why I have these volumes versus, well, these ones. And see, here's the problem, though. Volumes 23 and 24 in the new edition are not the same as volumes 23 and 24 in the older edition. These were misnumbered, so when they did the omnibuses in the new edition, you end up having this weird problem where volumes 23 and 24, so you get to the end of this volume, and you go to this volume, and the story continues off here. So in actuality, these are supposed to really be 25 and 26. Does that make sense to you? Make it any sense to you? Crazy stuff, isn't it? Ranma is a fantastic series, though. If you're a fan of comedy, please check it out if you haven't already. It's a crazy story about a bunch of martial artists who turn into animals and different forms, and they fall into water, and the craziness that ensues as a result. And it's just hysterical. And I'll tell you, as an adult, the older you get, the more funny the dads are in this series. The dads are like the best characters in the entire series. They are absolutely hysterical, and just the absolute ends they will send their children to just to make a quick buck or just to like get away with some cheap scheme is so stinking funny. Next we have another series by Rumiko Takahashi. Oh, what a lovely lady. Inuyasha Viz Big volumes 1 through 6. Dude, this is my childhood. Ranma was a big part of my childhood. I like Ranma a lot better now, hence why I own the entire series. But Inuyasha was such a part of my preteen years. It really, fortunately or unfortunately, was a huge part of what shaped me to be who I am today. So I had to get these volumes just because these were the particular volumes. So I believe, yes, this is 1 through 18. These particular volumes were the same as the episodes that aired on Adult Swim that made me fall in love with the series in the first place. And so it was a lot of fun going back and reading these volumes and just having a great time with these characters again. Is Inuyasha a fantastic series? Nah. Is it a good one? Yeah, especially volumes 1 through, I'd say 20-ish. there's some really fun stuff in those volumes. And yeah, Inuyasha kind of has a reputation for being cringy. And yes, there is a lot of cringe in it. But give it a second go. I think you'd be surprised. Next, we have the Tokyo Pop Chicks Mix, etc. edition of Sailor Moon. Man, I got all these volumes just to have myself a blast from the past. Unfortunately, I owned every volume of Sailor Moon as a kid. And yeah, those volumes didn't survive. So I'm glad to have these volumes. Oh, they're so good. They're so awesome. And surprisingly enough, no censorship in these volumes. These volumes did not get censored. You'd think that back in the day, especially because they censored the heck out of the anime, that they would have censored these volumes. They didn't. Yeah, they got poor translation, but that's it. That's all there is to it. Yeah, they call Usagi Bunny and they translate some of the quote-unquote localize some of the other names, but that's it. Like, they really did a good job. I mean, especially for the time. So I just appreciate these volumes so much. I'm looking to replace some volumes, though. Like, this one looks pretty crappy. But we'll save that for a day when I have a little bit more money to spare. Coming down here, we have Stars, and we also have this volume here. This is an anime guide to Sailor Venus. They published these back when I was a kid. This is not manga. This is just me reliving the glory days. And we have Kodansha's edition of Sailor Moon, which these guys published these in the early 2010s. So obviously you have the entire series. Then you have the collection of short stories, which some of these short stories were never published in English. So that was really cool that we got these volumes. And then Codenamed Sailor V, which was never published in English until this point. Kodansha, you absolute saints. Thank you so much for publishing Sailor V. Here's a little interesting tidbit about Sailor V, though. Sailor V was written before Sailor Moon and after Sailor Moon. So that's the reason why I put it on the end here. Some people would put Sailor V before Sailor Moon. I would put it after. The reason why, again, even though the first chapter technically was written before Sailor Moon, the last chapter was written after Sailor Moon, and the last chapter references something that happens on later in Sailor Moon. So if you start with Codename Sailor V, you are straight up spoiling yourself for a big part of Sailor Moon. So that's why I put it at the end here. I mean, Sailor V is one of my favorite characters in manga. Sailor Venus is just so rad. So I'm so glad Kodansha published those volumes. They're so good. Next we have the Japanese editions of the Eternal Edition of Sailor Moon. I bought these because I didn't think we ever were going to get these volumes. I'm going to be real with you. I got these because they have color pages of some of my favorite art ever. And I really, really wanted to have that art. I wanted to own it so bad. And because I thought we were never going to get these, I got these volumes. And you know what? Do I regret it? No, I really don't regret buying these volumes. I think they're cool. But would I have bought them had I known we were going to get the volumes later in English? Nah, probably not. Still, it's cool to have. Next we have Beelzebub, just volume 1 of this series. And yeah, you're never going to see this in English, ever. Thanks to, well, this little guy. Yeah, he's naked through the entire thing. His full glory is displayed for all of us. And he's a baby. That shouldn't be a problem because he's a baby, but, you know, English Western sensibilities, I guess. Beelzebub was a very hysterical series. Unfortunately, again, I read Beelzebub as scanlations back when I was a teenager. I wish there was another way I could support this series, but unfortunately, you can't. It was a great time. And unfortunately, it ended, I think, a little bit earlier than it should have. Next, we have Our Dreams at Dusk. As I've said before in some of my pickup videos, it's an LGBT manga, and it's celebrated as a manga that comes from LGBT perspectives. Guys, I'm just going to tell you straight up, I just think it's a good manga. Like, yeah, it's got those perspectives, but it's just a gosh darn good story. Like, I think that, unfortunately, when people say stuff like, oh, it's an LGBT manga, I think that some people approach these types of stories as, oh, well, then they're only just talking about these issues, and it's probably not a very good story. You know what I mean? So, this is a really, really, really rare, awesome story that I think anybody can enjoy. So even though, yes, it does have LGBT perspectives, it's just a good story throughout. High recommendation for me. Next we have With the Light. With the Light was another recommendation for me. And man, this story's good. So it's about a woman who has an autistic child, and this is an older manga, so the art is very, very whimsical, very like flowery and woo, and beautiful. But this series kicks butt. This is probably the most important series that I own, if that makes sense, because not only is it a story about a woman raising a child with autism, it's also like a how-to guide on how to treat people with autism. So her son is severely autistic, but they have different characters who are on different parts of the spectrum of autism. It's fantastic. Unfortunately, the volumes past volume 3 are really stinking expensive, even used. So I read the rest of the series digitally, but gosh, this is a fantastic story. And I highly, highly recommend, if you're going to be working with children with autism, give this a read. This has helped me so much, even my own career. I'm definitely not an expert now, but I have had so many great encounters with children with autism because of the stuff I learned in the series. It's so, so good. High recommendation. Finally, come to our last shelf here. We have Dragon Ball volumes 1 all the way to 42. And dang, wow. Very, very long series, but totally worth it. Now, I'm not the biggest Dragon Ball fan, so I got these cheap 3-in-1 volumes with very, very thin pages. I know that real Dragon Ball fans get those like awesome volumes, with the serious hardcore pages, but gosh guys, I love the sides of these volumes. Look at that. That's like the coolest thing ever. I love this little scene of a race here. Dragon Ball kicks butt. I'm in particular a really big fan of the Cell arc. Android 18 is like one of my favorite characters in Shounen manga. Gohan in particular, man, I feel Gohan. I can relate to him, having a lot of responsibilities, but not wanting to deal with them. I totally get it, my dude. So Dragon Ball's really cool. I have not read Dragon Ball Super, though. I've heard good things, but haven't read it. I enjoyed the original series, so maybe I'll give it a try in the future. Then we have Jaco, the Galactic Patrolman, which takes place in the Dragon Ball universe. It's a cute little gag comic, and he makes an appearance in one of the movies too, I know that. Then we have Frau Faust. This was a recommendation from a viewer. This is by the same lady who did The Ancient Magus's Bride, which is in my classroom. Don't have it here. This is cool. I like the main character. Frau Faust is pretty rad. She's obviously based on the literature character of Faust. I don't know if I'm going to get any volumes past this one, but I like this one a little bit better, I think, than Ancient Magus's Bride. Then finally, I have these manga samplers. I think they stopped doing these. I'm not sure, though. But you can find manga samples digitally way, way easy these days. So I can see why they probably stopped doing these. But if they haven't, let me know. I'm thinking I may move these to my classroom because I don't really read them anymore. But I bet I have some students who'd be interested in reading these little preview chapters of all of these different stories. This is the only shelf in my living room, the only shelf of manga that is visible to most people who visit my home. Despite having a YouTube channel of 10,000 subscribers, I still get kind of nervous about telling people that I have a manga collection, so I usually just keep these volumes out here. And then, for the people who really understand, I show them the manga collection, which, is you guys. But anyway, let's look at this shelf. So top shelf, not too much special. I got some of my favorite books up here, actual novels up here. I have some light novels as well. Magical Girl Raising Project, Spice and Wolf Volume 1, which I haven't gotten to yet. Sorry, Ian, thanks for giving it to me. Bacano, which is one of my favorite anime series. I have the first 5 light novels physical. I have the 6 through 10 digital. I actually have the rest of Magical Girl Raising Project published so far digital as well. Bacano's amazing. Check out the anime if you haven't already. It's so good. Bakemonogatari, first volume. It was okay. I'm not sure if I'm going to read any more than that. Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya was a huge part of my college years, so I read a couple of these novels. The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, the movie, is just incredible. And this is a copy of Alice in Wonderland in Japanese with art by Murata, who does the art for the manga edition of One Punch Man. So pretty cool stuff. One of my favorite books. So it's cool to own a book with a cover done by him. And then this is a Final Fantasy 15 anthology that my friend got me. Can't read it though, which is too bad. So we have this first row, what I like to call the JoJo row. So beautiful, beautiful JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. We got Phantom Blood, Battle Tendency, Stardust Crusaders, wow, long arc, and the first 4 volumes of the omnibuses of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable. We also have Manga in Theory and Practice. This is the basically like how-to guide for manga by Hirohiko Araki. I would love, by the way, to put this book in my classroom because I have a lot of students who are interested in making comics and manga, but he's got a picture of a nude woman in here, and it's like, oh, come on. Then we have Rohan at the Louvre, which is a manga volume you can actually get at the Louvre in English. This is the first time we got Rohan in English, fun fact. And this volume is really, really stinking good. In my opinion, it's totally worth the price. And then I have the first special edition volume of Stone Ocean. Got this from Japan. Also got this from Japan, Steel Ball Run. And then I have these two volumes. Volume 1, also got it from Japan, and Volume 14. So as far as JoJo is concerned, a lot of you are probably like, oh my gosh, CJ, what part's your favorite? Well, unfortunately, I was one of those dirty scanlation people, and yes, I have read all the way up through Part 8, what we're currently on right now. And as far as I'm concerned, Battle Tendency is a bop. It's amazing. I love Phantom Blood. I love Stardust Crusaders. I just adore Battle Tendency. It's just so good. Joseph is like my favorite JoJo. Aside from Battle Tendency though, Stone Ocean and Steel Ball Run are easy hits. I mean, they're amazing. And Part 8 might be better on the reread. Next shelf, we have the Eternal editions of Sailor Moon. These are the super awesome uber special editions of Sailor Moon. Gosh, look at that. Just so gorgeous. Some of these volumes, though, are hit or miss. Like, that volume obviously is really nice, but then you get some fun stuff like Volume 6, and it's like, oh my gosh, Neptune, what happened to you? In my opinion, these volumes are really, really, really worth it. They're big, they're easy to read, the art is so stinking cool. It's so cool to get the color art in these volumes. I just wish they weren't that expensive. If you're collecting these, pre-order them. That way you can get them cheaper and you don't have to spend like $30 each time one of these volumes comes out. Next row, we start with Asano. So finally we're getting back into alphabetical order and not just specialized series. So first is What a Wonderful World. This is a short story collection by Asano. There's some pretty good stuff in here. The second story in the first volume is my particular favorite. Solanin, this was my first descent into Asano. I like to say descent because, oh my gosh, Asano's stories are just so dark. Solanin is no exception, but in my opinion, Solanin is probably the easiest to access of Asano's works. In my opinion, it's also the most uplifting of Asano's works. Take that as you will. Goodnight, Poon Poon. I'm so sorry, guys. I tried. I really tried. It's just so sad, and I love Asano's work, but I could not make it past Volume 1 of Goodnight Poon Poon. It just got way too sad. Dead Demons, Destruction. I love this series. I love this series so much. This might be my favorite of his works if it weren't for Solanin. Actually, this series might be better, might tie with Solanin for me. Even though I think critically Solanin is better, I mean, this series is just so good. This is basically Asano's answer to fans of his being like, oh my gosh, why don't you draw cute girls? What the heck, Asano? And so he's like, fine, you want cute girls? I'll do it. And he creates this amazing story full of aliens, full of the end of the world, full of like crisis, full of just amazing characters and some really, really wacky stuff. I love this series, but from what I heard for some people, it's not everybody's favorite. So take that what you will. Next, we have The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and A Link to the Past. I actually own all of Akira Himekawa's Zelda, but it's at the school, so oopsie doopsie. I ended up collecting these special editions of these particular series, though, because, oh my gosh, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask basically shaped my childhood. I mean, these two games just completely rocked my world, so I had to own these two particular games, and I got a little bonus for A Link to the Past, so that's pretty rad. Next, we have Skullface Bookseller Honda-san. So, wow, this series is interesting. This is a nonfiction manga, and I love nonfiction manga. I've been really getting into nonfiction manga, like Blank Canvas, etc. This one in particular tells the story of a bookseller in Japan, particularly, who sells comics. If you're ever interested in, well, I know it's a very like niche topic, but book selling in Japan. This is a fantastic series. It's very silly and it's very informative too. It's very interesting to see how manga actually functions as a business in Japan because, I mean, guys, business is what moves our world. So as much as we want to not admit it. These two volumes were from my friend Ian. This is a short story collection from the beautiful Haruko Ichikawa, the author of Land of the Lustrous. These were her stories before she did Land of the Lustrous, and you can see a lot of the inspiration of Land of the Lustrous in some of these stories. In fact, there's one, I believe, in this volume that basically has the character of Sensei, and these are just so cool. Thank you so much, Ian. I wish I could read them. Then we have, of course, you know it, Land of the Lustrous. I mean, it's interesting because when you get older, you know, I'm only 28, but when you get older, you tend to like less and less stuff. You tend to be less accepting of new things. Land of the Lustrous came to me about 4 or 5 years ago. Can't really remember exactly the time, but Land of the Lustrous is one of my favorite manga of all time, like hands down. It's just that good. People who've viewed my channel many, many times before know how good this series is and know how much I love it. It's an easy recommendation for basically anybody except for maybe, I don't know, like Shounen tryhards. But I absolutely adore it. It's fantastic. It is bonkers. It is beautiful. It's introspective. It's made me think differently about my own life. And oh my gosh, I easily recommend this. Hey, speaking of like thinking differently, Amenon, Memories of Amenon. This is a very interesting first volume. I don't want to collect the rest of the series because I like where the first volume ended, and I ended up figuring out via YouTube comment later on after I made a video with this in my haul, is that apparently this was supposed to be just one volume, and then popular demand had more volumes made after it. So, I mean, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I got the complete series, but it's pretty good. It's pretty introspective. Get the first volume, see if you like it. In This Corner of the World. Wow. So I teach a mini unit in my English class on Hiroshima, and it's a tough topic. And In This Corner of the World is what I feel a fantastic job at really just highlighting some of the just sadness around the event. But it's not grotesque. It's not morbid. It kind of just presents the event as it is, which I really appreciate. I feel like a lot of stories go out of the way to shock the reader or to disturb the reader. In This Corner of the World just kind of presents it matter-of-factly, and in a way, I feel actually makes the event become more alive to the reader. Easy recommendation. And the movie I believe it was streaming on Netflix, at least temporarily. I hope it's still on there. The movie version of this is really good. Next up, we have Bride Story, and the first 2 volumes of this series were given to me by my friend Peter, and I love this series. I wish the volumes were not as expensive because I want to collect more. This story features a lot of different brides and a lot of different situations, a lot of different life circumstances. And gosh, I love historical fiction, and I love this art. I've heard that this artist also did Emma, the very famous, like, just very historical fiction-y manga, and I want to check out that work as well. Bride Story is so good. Next, we have the Japanese edition of Mob Psycho 100, plus, well, Mob Psycho 101. Then we come down here to 2, 3, and 4. And unfortunately, this series was published by Dark Horse, which, oh, Dark Horse, you just take forever publishing volumes. It makes me so mad. It's going to be forever before we get this entire series, even though the series has been long finished in Japan. Mob Psycho 100, as I said before, in many of my videos, is made by the same guy who did One Punch Man, but instead of the redone manga like we have for One Punch Man in the States, this is purely his art. And a lot of people complain that his art isn't very good. Trust me when I say this, just give it a try. You get used to the art pretty fast, and it's really cool to see him actually grow as an artist over time. Like, his art gets better and better and better. It's just really stinking cool. I love Mob Psycho 100, and especially as someone who works with junior high students, this is the one series I feel that gets junior high students really, really right. Next, we have Invitation from a Crab. Yeah, this one's bonkers. I got not much to say about it, but if you want to read a manga that just doesn't really make a lot of sense, this one's for you. It's very crazy. It kind of feels almost like theater, where like the characters in the story kind of play different parts, depending on like how they're needed. It's very interesting. Very, very curious. Next, we have Erased Omnibuses Volume 1 and 2. This is a murder mystery time traveling story. Very odd, but very cool. And I love these covers. These covers are just so, oh my gosh, that's just so good. I ended up reading the ending digitally, and the ending is, it's okay. I mean, it's satisfying, but I think that these first 2 volumes just pack such a powerful punch. Next, we have Milky Way Hitchhiking, which is so cute. Look at this. Look at this. So I'm not actually sure if this is a manga. I'm gonna be real with you. But I put it up here just because it's just so stinking cute and wonderful, and I love it. Yeah, check out Milky Way Hitchhiking. It's It's super cute. Next, we have Ranma Half, Volume 15. The reason why this one's up here, and you'll notice that this edition is different from the other Ranma volumes that I have in this video. This one is another one where this wasn't the volume I had in my childhood, but it was one of the volumes I had in my childhood, and this is like my absolute favorite volume of Ranma Half. It tells the story of basically Ranma getting in trouble with this French like elite guy who was promised that he could marry one of his father's daughters, which as it turns out, you know, could have been not only Ranma, who could have been roped into this marriage scheme, but also his fiancée Akane, because her dad got into this situation as well. So Ranma takes Akane's place, basically, and it's just one of the most hysterical things ever. The villain, the French guy, is just so stinking funny, and the solution that Ranma comes up with is really stinking great. Next we have Orange, which, if I could fit this volume in here, there we go. Orange volumes 1, 2, huge omnibuses, and Orange Future, which I'm going to level with you guys. I love Orange. It's a really fascinating story about a girl who gets letters from her future self warning her of events that are to come, and it's very crazy. The time travel shenanigans are very goofy. Although I will warn you, if you're looking for like sci-fi sort of stuff, they don't really dive into why the time travel works or how it works. It just kind of works. So don't go into this series thinking it's going to be like this cool sci-fi epic. It's not. These two volumes, awesome. This one was totally unnecessary. I'm going to be real with you. This one just kind of like was like, oh yeah, great. Like more repetition of stuff we already know from these first two volumes. And I just feel so bad for the main character of this volume. It just seems like he got completely brushed under the rug compared to the other two main characters. Next, we have Children of the Whales. And this series I want to give another try because look at this gosh darn art. Look at that art. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's just gorgeous. This one's this crazy dystopian science fiction-y, magic-y fantasy epic. And a lot of people sing high praises for Children of the Whales. I want to give it a second try, and I just need to really just buckle down and do it. Next, we have FLCL. This is actually a pretty old manga adaptation. And for those of you who like the cartoon, the cartoon, who am I? Those of you who like the anime, this series is very different. It ends differently. The stories are different. So check this out if you like FLCL. I certainly do. I actually kind of like this a little bit more than the anime, weirdly enough. The story, anyway. The anime production is totally better. Next, we have, the part of the video that I feel like isn't any manga YouTuber's collection. I mean, I feel like Urasawa is just like mandatory at this point. Don't we all know that? But if you don't own Urasawa, you're fine. I just feel like it's stereotypical at this point. First, we have Monster, which I didn't really like as much as some of Urasawa's other works. It's about this like guy who's searching after this, basically, this monster, this kid whose life he saved, who turned out to be a killer later on. Oops! Stinks to stink. But yeah, I'm not as big of a fan of Monster as I am of 20th Century Boys. This is one crazy story, and you can kind of see on these spines here that it's forming an image, which I love that kind of stuff. It's very subtle, very cool. This is about a group of friends who end up finding out that one of their friends is starting this crazy cult and is going to doom the world, and it's just bonkers. I love it. I love the mystery so far. Every volume that comes in, I'm like, please tell me more of what's going on. It's just so painful waiting for that next volume. I just love it. More Urasawa. Pluto. I've talked about Pluto before, but Pluto is an adaptation of this volume of Astro Boy right here, which covers the greatest robot on Earth, which is the story of Astro Boy's fight against, who would you know? Pluto. So I will say, if you are going to read Pluto, I would highly recommend reading The Greatest Robot on Earth, just because it'll give you some insight into what Urasawa was trying to do with Pluto, but it's not necessary. It's really not. You'll still get a good time with Pluto, but it's really cool to see how he adapted certain characters in this story. So for example, this guy, who's the main character of the story, he appears for like 2 pages in the original. So obviously, Gaziked got a way better role in Pluto than he ever did in the original story. So that's why I recommend it. It's kind of cool to see the differences. Next, all the way down here, I gotta move the camera all the way down. We have Vinland Saga, which, the Blessed series, it's so good. Vinland Saga is just amazing. I mean, I feel like any manga YouTuber who's talked about Vinland Saga sing this series some high praises, and I will as well. I love Vikings. Vikings are cool. like my ancestors were Vikings. At least part of me, I'm sure, came from Vikings. And gosh, Yukimura is such a Viking geek, and you can totally tell. Something I also like about Vinland Saga is that the representation of Christians in this series is really stinking solid. Just Christians as a people. You see a lot of anime like try to represent Christians, and to be fair, Vinland Saga is trying to be historically accurate. That's why the Christians, in my opinion, are portrayed so well. But it's a very, very nice thing to see a manga actually get the portrayal of Christians right, instead of just like, I don't know, nuns with guns. Yeah, Thorkel is the best character ever. I'm looking to get more volumes. I cannot wait to read what comes after volume 6. Next, we got a bunch of art books and other stuff. First, we have The Art of Cardcaptor Sakura. This was a Tokyo Pop publication. There's a third volume that I never end up getting. This, again, was one of the only books that survived the childhood purge of my manga. So this means a lot to me. And it's cool to get some actual like art books. I wish I could open it up and show you guys. Next, we have Destiny the video game, the Grimoire collection. This is just a bunch of lore. The Art of Full Metal Alchemist. I'll just show you this. Wow, look at that volume. It's super cool. It contains all the art, including promotional art, which usually you don't see that with manga art books. You don't see like promotional art, but even promotional art for like the anime and stuff is in here, which I think is super cool. Got a bunch of Zelda stuff. This isn't manga, but Hyrule Historia, Arts and Artifacts, Encyclopedia, which I don't like this book that much because they put a bunch of like original content in there, which is not in line with the games. And Creating a Champion, super cool. Jorah's Mask Guide, Hyrule Warriors Guide. There we go. Here's the manga. Oh yes, we got the color walks, which are super stinking cool. Actually, I can show you these volumes. I actually have these on my coffee table in my living room. I have the Japanese volumes that appear in this particular volume. So we have Eagle here and Shark here. So the One Piece color walks in Japan are named after the animal that makes an appearance on the cover. Fun fact, which is why a gorilla is so prominently featured in this one and a lion is so prominently featured on this one. So a little fun fact from me to you. Then we have this lovely book. Oh my gosh, this book is so pretty. Pseudomorph of Love. This is, of course, the art for Land of the Lustrous, and this volume does not contain all the art of Land of the Lustrous. Oh my gosh, that is... I forgot how risque this cover is, because obviously it wasn't finished yet, or it still isn't finished by the time this art book came out, but it's still awesome. I totally recommend it. I hope they make another art book that completes all of the art from the Land of the Lustrous. That'd be so cool. Then we have these volumes of Shonen Jump. These 2 volumes were published in Japan when I was over there. So they made for some really, really cool souvenirs. And then Land of the Lustrous again. This book in particular, I just got this because I needed a bonus to basically an order I was making. They were like, oh yeah, you can like add on like a few more dollars of something to get like, you know, X amount off of your order. So I was like, oh, cool. I'll just like order this magazine that like Land of the Lustrous is so predominantly featured on. So yeah, why not? So that's the only reason I own this particular volume, but it's still cool enough to put in my collection.
Thank you so much for watching, especially if you gotten to this point in the video. It's been a blast these past 5 years on YouTube, and your support has been enormous. I really, really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Until next time, this is CJ, signing off.